All right, I'm about to head over to the bandsaw, and I just want to describe a couple things before I get there. One, the depth of this cut, I want to go such that the blade sticks up, maybe 1/4 to 5/16 above the end of the stock there. So I've got a stop set on the bandsaw. So as I go through, pretending that's the blade, as I go through, I'll hit a stop. I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to make cuts and then flip it, make another cut to make sure it's centered. I've made sure, using my small combination square, that the blade is square and the fence is square, since that's obviously my reference. And I'm hoping this is going to work okay, but that blade is, I've had it on there a while. It's not super sharp, so I'll probably end up going back in and out multiple times to kind of get that to cut well. But hopefully that'll work just fine. So let's go over and do that. Okay, you can see my setup here. I've got the stop. I think I'm good to go. Now note, I've got the wheels up a little higher than normal. Normally I have them closer, but I have to clear the fence. So I set the fence to the correct width, and then I set the guides here as low as I could before they bump into that. So that's as good as that's going to get. Okay, switching gears. That was asking a lot of that bandsaw blade, particularly since it was a little bit dull. So I'm on the table saw now, which was what I would have done normally, but I was just trying to avoid this tool, partly just to show a different method, and partly because things are a mess right now. So I'm set up now. I've got the blade up to the height that I was cutting before. I've got my Forest #1 grind Woodworker 2 blade in here, which leaves a flat top kerf. If I didn't have that, I could use a rip blade. I've got a backer here so that when the blade comes through, it doesn't tear out the back side of that. So I'll make a cut, flip it around, make another cut, and tweak the stop. Now note too, I've got a big hefty stop here. That makes this much easier, where my part is fully supported by the stop. So of course I need to make sure the stop's nice and square, which I've done. So I think I'm good to go here. Okay, I'm pretty close. I think I'm going to plane this down the rest of the way. I've got maybe about 1/64 left to go. All right, so like I said, I'm going to plane this down till it fits in there, and I do want to check it once in a while because I think one end is a little thinner than the other. And I did check, I've got the flattest side down. So I'll continue to do this till it fits nicely. I've cut these to length now, and I'm going to shoot the ends. So that looks good. Okay, and then on this, the end I cut. Yes, I love getting these nice little end grain shavings off a nice sharp blade on the shooting board. There we go. Okay, so I still need to shoot the edges of this to make sure. They were pretty square though, but I'd like them to be a little bit smoother. I think they're just off the jointer from previously. So I'll go ahead and set up that other shooting board. And so I think this is looking nice. So I cut the blade to 10. I cut this to 5 3/4, which it would be about 6 up to here. So I don't know. I just like that proportion, about 1.6. And it does fit slightly better. So it's a little loose there, a little bit snugger there. So this is slightly tapered, but. Right, all we really care about are these edges and these edges. So let me shoot these and then we'll glue it up. So I've shot one edge. Now I'm going to do the other side. Once again, being very careful to do that pressure correctly. So let's see how we're doing here. So 1738, 1740, 739. Yeah, so it's about 2 thousandths. Well, it's probably a little closer now. That's 38. Yeah. So I need to take a little bit more off this end. So I'm going to do a partial pass, so about, well, went a little far here, but about 1/3, 2/3, and then do a couple, make sure everything is straight. Let's see if that fixed it. So now I'm at 27, oops, 25, 24, I went too far. So I'll go ahead and fix this. So just 2 passes that time, 1 halfway. So there's 18, 19, that's 18, okay. Close enough for woodworking. So I'm within about 1,000th there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'll figure out which is, yeah, see, that's kind of tight there. I don't want that tight because what happens is it's slightly thicker here, and I don't want it to go down the bottom and push that out. So I'm going to turn it over. And that's almost too loose. Yeah, it was better at this end. Okay, so I'm going to get some epoxy, put that in there, we'll clamp it up, let the epoxy dry, and then I'm going to drill and pin also. Before I glue the blade in, I want to put a little chamfer on here because that's going to be hard to reach. I didn't do it on this one, but yeah, I want to put a chamfer here and here. Just looks a little nicer. All right, I'm ready to glue up. I want to make sure I had everything set because I do want to clamp this once that's in there. So I'm going to use this clamp. I like this clamp because it's got really smooth surfaces here, so it's not going to mar the wood. And once that's on there, I'm going to slide that under there just to keep that, so that's pretty square there. When I glue this up, if I just push that down straight into there, it turns out it's not quite square. So what I'm doing, I'm going to use my combination square, and I know this is really square. So I use it to ensure that the interior angle is square. Now, theoretically, you know, since these are parallel and these are parallel, the outside should be square too. But if for some reason it's not, I can easily tweak that after it's glued up. It's very difficult to fix this angle once it's glued up. So I'm going to focus on this one, and that one's going to be what it's going to be. So I think I'm good. I put a little piece of tape on here just so I make sure I put this on the right way, so it goes like that. I'm going to put glue on the inside there. I don't think I'll put much here. I don't need a lot of glue in there because I am going to pin it too, and that certainly will do most of the work, but I want some epoxy in there just to make sure it stays put while I'm doing the pinning. So I've got some epoxy here, just Gorilla Glue epoxy from Home Depot, nothing special. And we'll go ahead and mix this up. Equal parts of each. Not going to take much. Oops. Now, I probably don't have to tell people this, but you know, I always used to assume certain things when you're teaching, and you sometimes find out the hard way that people don't know everything that you know, right? So I had somebody one time when we were making Bridge City squares, and we had to use epoxy to glue the brass to the wood. And one of my students came up to me after they glued it up, and the glue was just a mess. It was wet. It was like they had only used one of the parts of the epoxy. And I realized later that they hadn't fully mixed it. I mean, you really got to mix this stuff, right? I usually mix it for, I don't know how long I'm doing this, but a long time, a minute or so. Yeah, it needs to be thoroughly mixed. And they found out the hard way what happens if you don't. So, see if I can get that without making too much of a mess here. Probably should have gotten a thinner stick. Okay, so I just want to kind of make sure that surface is wet. Okay, so that goes in like that. Feels good. I can feel the glue there. Now I got a little bit of epoxy right there. So I'll set this like that. So I slide that up, and I'm looking, you know, towards a light here, towards that window, so I can, you can't see this on the camera, but I can see that as I slide that back and forth, that gap closes up consistently and evenly. Make sure that's snug there. So that looks good. I don't think I'm going to glue that to my bench. Okay, so let that dry. It's 5-minute epoxy, but I'll let it dry 10 or 15 minutes, and we'll go ahead and drill some holes and put some pins in there. Okay, the epoxy's dry. It's actually been almost an hour. So I've got some dowel that I made a while ago. I think it's mahogany. And it kind of looks like the Shedjo, so I like the color. So it's 3/8. I'm going to drill a couple 3/8 holes, maybe there and there. I've got a 3/8 brad point bit in here. I've got the spots marked. I've got a clean back backer here, so we should be good to go. I've got my dowels cut to length, and I chamfered the ends just a little bit on sandpaper. I've got my bench just opened up just enough so I've got that well supported. So I'm going to put a little glue inside the holes. And I don't really want to put it on the dowels because it's going to get pushed out onto the top surface. I'd rather not have that happen. Kind of snug in here, so I'm not too concerned about them coming out. Okay, that look good. And you know, like I said, those are snug with the glue there. I don't think they're going anywhere even now. So I'll take my flush trim saw and cut those flush. Make sure I got the right side up there. Alrighty, so a couple passes with the plane on there. Okay, I think that looks great. So I might, let's see if we check the outside here. Now sometimes when you glue this up, the blade can actually stick out a little bit there, but this one's nice and flush. Feels great. And that looks pretty good. It might be just a touch high at the back here. So I've just got some fine sandpaper here, just knocking those corners down so it nothing feels sharp. Just like to feel it, make sure nothing's catching. And I thought it wasn't quite square on top, but it turns out I wasn't holding the square correctly, so that looks really good. So I don't typically put finish on these things. I think it looks good, and I think it's really going to look good once this darkens up. So I think we're good to go.